This is Natasha here with ShaoCon. We are talking to our awesome producers here. We have Trish Taylor and Tammy Thomas, and they're going to give us a look into the life of a producer versus not being a producer. And thank you for being here. Uh, Awesome. So we're going to start out with a pretty simple question. I guess we're just going to go really basic for now. So what does a producer do? What is a producer?
That's a very complicated question. Producer does everything, basically. Everything from the beginning, trying to get the money to do your film, to making sure the film gets made, to making sure your film gets distributed and marketed. That's the short answer. Now, we could go on for several hours talking in depth about what a producer does, but yeah, that's what we're doing. And I've been a producer for several years now, a lot on the corporate side, but just recently transitioned over into the feature side. And I've learned a lot myself, and I'm hoping that maybe I can share that with some of the people here in the audience.
Well, to piggyback off Trish, which I will be doing a lot, but yes, producers produce. They produce content, they produce funds, and a lot of times the money behind it is called the executive producer. And so they're all things executive, trying to make sure that you have the money that you need to do what you need. Also, the paperwork, making sure that everyone gets their paperwork and contracts signed, from the actors to the crew, and they make sure that the production, well, they're one of the entities that make sure the production runs smooth and the way that it should.
So I've noticed, for example, you watch certain movies like Quiet Place, other places, other movies, they have actors who produce and are essentially the headliners. What makes somebody want to transition from maybe, for example, voice acting or acting or anything like that to, being behind the scenes in that way?
Funny you asked that. I started out in this industry as an actor. I still do some acting. I still dip my toe in. But in order to make a living, I went behind the camera. And the reason you do that is you need to pay your bills. But you fall in love with the craft itself because you love filmmaking, you love storytelling. And when I started out as an actor, I loved being behind the camera. I loved taking a script and making it come to life. But I also loved being able to see what all the techie people were doing behind the scenes, and how do you make this run, and what are the steps that you need to do to make a film, an indie film. An indie film is so different compared to one of the big blockbuster type films. You can get down in the dirt and dirty with indie. You can do everything from shooting in your own bathroom to bumping up to a different level. Currently, I'm signed on in Discovery with 2 feature films, and we are considered low budget. One of them is, and it's going to be different from what she's going to talk about. Our low budget for one of them is at 3.2 mil. And our other one is at 6 mil. So it's actually in the industry considered low budget. But when you're doing scrappy, indie, it's a lot less than that. But to do that transition, I think there are a lot of people out there like me who are hyphens. Actor, producer, director, writer. A lot of people are doing that, and especially my team, my producing team, we have one that is a writer-producer. We have another one that's a director-producer, because it's your baby. It's your project, and so a lot of people get in there because they want to see it made properly.
And again, there are many hyphens because I myself have many hyphens. I'm an actor, writer, producer, and going off of what, and you said what makes you want to go behind the scene, because it's your project. And once you've written a project and you want to see it to fruition, and you also have a vision for it, then you do want to be the driving force behind the camera as well. Now, you are going to wear many hats as an independent film producer. Just know that. And some of you probably already know that if you've made an independent film, or if you plan to make an independent film, you're going to wear many, many hats, and your name is going to be on that credits. It's going to be all, your name is going to come repeatedly on that credit list along with your colleagues. And so that's what made me want to go behind the camera as well as in front of the camera, because I wrote a movie, I hired a team. You know, we all need each other, and we cannot do this alone, so we all need each other. And so I hired a crew that was a super crew, and we made things work. Now, on the lower budget side, I work with more of the five-figure, you know, with the $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 production. And what I found is it is more challenging, but it is certainly not impossible to do that with a full feature or with a short film. Because I've done full features. The very first one I did was $13,000. Okay, I went into partnership. Now that's a whole different story, because I know Dave Ramsey says the only ship that won't sail is a partnership. We won't we won't discuss that. But then my second feature was $30,000, and I saved that all myself because I could not get any sponsors who wanted to invest in my project, or any investors that wanted to invest in my project. And so with creativity and resourcefulness, you can move mountains. So sometimes it does take you going behind the scenes, producing and such, as well as in front of the camera, to make your vision come to life. And it can be done.
Awesome. Thank you for that great answer. Can you guys go a little bit more into your first, like, earliest film and what you would do differently, based off of, even if you had the same budget, the same exact situation, what you would do differently now that you know what you know?
Well, I know what I would do differently with my first film. I just mentioned it. It was called Paradise House, and it was a period piece set in the 1950s, and we were doing this in 2013. So a period piece, $13,000, 2013, no pressure at all, right? So what would I do different? Just a few minor things I would do different. I would pay more attention to the set design, because when I looked at it, I was like, oh gosh, that needed to be different. And then the sound. But again, this was my dream, this was my baby, and I wanted to make it by any means necessary. And so when you are doing things yourself like that, and when you have that kind of budget, it takes a little longer to save the money, because I know with both the films, my films, it took about 5 years to save that lump sum of money. So sometimes you have to push it back or wait a little longer to do it, but don't give up, don't lose courage. But I guess the thing I would do differently, like I said, was this set. And also, that's probably it, because it was a learning experience. And so the mistakes that were made and the things that I'm like, oh shoot, I wish I could do it again. Well, no, you just go and do that with your next film. Learn from what you did with the first one. Don't make the same mistakes for the second one, and make sure that every film that you make is greater than the last.
Love that. Ditto. I actually started my career on the production side and doing corporate videos, and learned a lot from doing corporate videos, where I put crews together. You work directly with the client, you work with the locations, you wear a lot of different hats with that, and I love doing corporate. But then there's this bug that you get to do independent films. So my very first one was doing a short, and a lot went wrong with that short. One of the things that I ended up having to do, yes. It was actually with a 48-hour film festival that we did, and I was a first-time producer on that, and we ended up having to fire one of our lead actresses because the set became toxic. And you cannot have a film when you have a toxic set. Long story short, she started telling the crew what to do and how to do their jobs, and we ended up having to fire her at midnight and trying to find another actress. And it turns out that it was a boxing film, and we were able to, there was a lady in there boxing at midnight at this boxing rink, and we asked her if she wanted to come and participate in this little short that we were doing, and she said sure. And you should have seen the lift of spirit that happened on the set when we had her join us. I agree with you that you put as much energy into producing a short as you do a full feature. It's just longer. It's the same prep time that you have to do. On the budget side, when we were transitioning into the 2 features that we're doing now, I am on a learning curve for that too. Usually when I get hired as a producer on a project, it's usually on the pre-production and production where the money is already in place. So now on these 2 features, it's first time me going into the discovery phase of how do you find the money to make your film. That's like the number one question that people ask you when you're doing independent film. How do you find this money? One of the things that I have learned is you surround yourself with people who have done it before and ask a lot of questions, and it's all about networking. It's all about relationship building. Just like you guys are coming here and building relationships and meeting people and putting those people in place. And I was just telling Tammy beforehand, it's all about trust too. You have to build trust in the people that you're working with, because when you start working on a feature film, you are committing yourself to at least 2 years with this feature, if not more.
Yeah.
Because finding the money for it is one of the hardest things that I think I've had to do. But what I am finding is once you've made those relationships and you know people in those places, they can open doors for you and make those introductions. The trick, well, there's not really a trick. It's called preparation. You have to have everything in place, know what your distribution is going to be before you even start the project. Because when you're starting to approach investors and say, hey, I've got this fabulous script, you're going to love it. We're going to have this awesome cast that's part of it. But to get people to give you $1 million or give you $30,000, they need to be able to trust you with that money. And you have to prove yourself with that. And so it's about relationships and getting these people to introduce you to those people and vouch for you. And that's where you're starting now. You're starting with building these relationships, and I think they called it building your tribe of people. I have been in this industry for quite a while now and been part of organizations, and the best way that I can say to build your tribe is to join some of these film organizations around town. I am the past president of the Georgia Production Partnership. I sat on that board for 12 years. And finally rolled off of it. Now other people have that task. And WIFTA, the Women in Film and Television Atlanta, they also accept men, not just women, is a wonderful organization here in town for networking. And they help you with different projects. They do mentorships. Oh, may I mention this too? For one of my projects that I'm doing, it's called Randy Mandy and the Curse of the Plaza Theater. Woo-hoo. And I'm very excited about it. It's a vampire comedy, and it's LGBTQ and women inclusive. All the higher above the lines are women. We're real excited about it because we've got the Plaza Theater in. Chris Escobar is coming in as executive producer. I am an executive producer as well as a producer on it. And what we're doing with this film, too, is we're doing a behind-the-scenes making of the film where we're doing mentorships. So people who want to learn to produce, people who want to learn to do camera, people who want to do these different positions can apply for these mentorships. And we're doing it in conjunction with CMII and Georgia Film Academy. We're getting a bunch of students who want to participate and learn these things as part of that too. So long story of it's about relationships and building that trust to be able to make your film.
So I know you mentioned fundraising. Actually, I was going to ask that at some point. Do you have any thoughts as well, Tammy, in regards to fundraising and just, I guess, any more general advice or specific advice where you can go to network and get that money, whether it be grants or anything like in that aspect?
Well, I mentioned earlier that me personally, Trish and I are very different as far as the fundraising. Is that she has a lot more experience and she's done that many times. You know, she's developed a lot more relationships. As far as with me, I have tried and it hasn't worked for me quite the same. And so what has worked for me is, again, working hard and saving the money. I have a full-time job in radio, and I also do side gigs where I raise the money. I do murder mystery dinner theaters. I was a phone actress. Yeah. And so, and I did that for 5 years. So any little thing I could do to make extra money, I did it. And I am no stranger to, nor am I afraid of hard work. And that's what it really all boils down to. Hard work, creativity, resourcefulness. You can make your independent film. You can move mountains with those on your side. So that is the way that I was able to raise the money, is extra jobs and having people on my team who, now I don't ask people to do anything for free. And so having people on my team that would be willing to work with my budget, because even though it's not free, it doesn't pay the moon and the stars. I don't promise people the moon and the stars either. I'm very upfront, and that's what you have to do. You have to be very upfront with people and let them know, hey, listen, this is my budget, this is what I have, this is what I'm able to do. And 9 times out of 10, if they believe in you and they believe in your project, they will work for the budget that you have. So that's my advice.
Too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if you work for your film, you know, at this particular budget level, and you're helping this person out, you're bringing each other up at the same time. That's what I'm talking about, building your tribe. It's like, okay, I've got this wonderful script. We want to produce it. We want to put it together. Will you be willing to come over and help me do mine? And then I'll help you do yours. And I'm like you need to pay people. This whole working for credit and food, doesn't work. You get what you pay for. Exactly.
What you don't pay for.
Exactly. One of the things that we're working towards is, for the second film that I'm producing, is we're working for grants. You had mentioned that a few minutes ago. This one is a coming-of-age social justice film. It's a lot bigger film. It's also a period piece. And so, you know how when they talk about writing your script, don't put children in, don't put period, don't put crowd scenes, don't put multiple locations. It's got all of that in there. But we know it's going to be a fabulous film. And so what we do is we go to organizations that we think that this genre would sell to. So it's civil rights era. So we're going towards organizations that would help support and do grants towards what that genre would be. The first film is in the horror film section, so we would be aiming towards the horror film market. And that's what you need to know too when you're producing your indie film, is know who your audience is to start with. And those are the people you aim towards, and know what distribution is going to happen for those particular audiences. Believe it or not, you probably know, horror sells more than any of the other genres. It is, and it's because it's cheaper to make, it's easier to put out there, and it's worldwide appeal. So when you're doing your distribution, you're also looking at worldwide sales as well as domestic sales. So you have to budget that in your budget plan. And here in the state of Georgia, hopefully everyone knows about the tax incentive that we have here. You can actually use that as part of your budgeting process too. We're in the process of going to a company here and putting a package together. You have to put a pitch package. You have to have your business plan put together. You have to have all your ducks in a row so that they think, oh, this person's a professional. And you go before a film fund or a company that has a film fund and say, this is a wonderful project. This is who we're planning on attaching to it. We have first money in. A lot of times they want you to have first money in. And then you can get a chance to pitch your project. And that's a whole other conference breakout session, is how to pitch your project.
Thank you for those insightful answers. So recently, on a separate note, I took a class with Linda Burns, and I've noticed she said there are producers in name only and producers that are producing essentially. Now, do you think there is some benefit to being a producer in name only for resume purposes when applying for other things? And if so, I guess what are good ways to go about that for people who want to produce, if that makes sense?
I know Linda. I love Linda. GPP also participates in that PA Academy as well as the Atlanta Film Society. I don't believe in putting a producer name behind your name if you haven't produced in name only. You have to, as Linda will say, you have to earn that. You have to put the time in to do that. Producing's hard. It's not easy. You are the responsible person, and if somebody's giving you money, you're the responsible person to make sure that they can get their money back, too, with the distribution thing. So I feel like you put the time in and learn your craft and shadow someone, mentor someone, work in, another craft area. But you can hone it by starting with shorts and working with your team and learning that way. But when you actually start using the word producer as your title, you darn well need to have produced and know what producing means. You mentioned in name only or the working producer, because you can give money to something and they'll give you a producer credit. That doesn't count. I'm sorry. And they're also considering now in the PGA, I believe, whether people who are coming in like as doing director, producer, writer, producer, what those credits look like. I think if you've actually gone in there and you're going out, you're trying to find the money, you're going out and you're putting the legwork in, you're working with the locations people, you're working with a whole crew, you're working on site and making sure that set is running properly, then you're a producer, and I feel like you have to earn it too.
So the answer I have for that is you were asking what makes a producer. Tell me again what the question was.
No, it's essentially like, is there any benefit towards your resume essentially when it's producer in name only? And if not, like, I guess kind of just talk a bit more about that, about the producer in name versus the producer not in, actually active. If it's something beneficial or not.
If it's beneficial to your resume?
Yeah, or not. Yeah.
I would say yes. It is very beneficial to your resume because it shows that you have been the responsible person, just like you were saying, and you've been able to have and keep things organized for that set. A producer's job is not easy. It is extremely challenging. It is extremely time-consuming. You have to, yes, it is stressful. You have to make sure that all the I's are dotted, all the T's are crossed, the cast members have what they need, the crew member has what they need, all the paperwork, and so and so and so and so. So absolutely, it's worth having producer's credit on your resume. Yeah, yeah.
Thank
So
you. Yeah, perfect. Thank you for that. Okay, so tell me, what do people walk in, like fresh wannabe producer? They walk in. What do they think? What do you notice people think producing is, and what isn't being a producer? Like, essentially that. Yeah. If that makes sense. Like, go. Like, do people go for like, okay, I got my glory, I got my.
Yeah.
People walk in thinking it's like, most this thing. It turns out it's more just okay, in the dirt, produce the organization.
I tell you what a producer. So, again, just going by what we said earlier. A producer's job is nothing to take lightly. It definitely is time consuming. It definitely takes ultra organizational skills, and that is definitely what Trish has. She is extremely organized. She's extremely tedious about everything that she does, and so that's what it takes to get someone on your team like that. And if you are not like that, it also takes you being smart enough to hire people smarter than you. And once you do that, then that's made you one of the smartest people because you knew better that, hey, that's not my lane. Because like I said before, you're going to wear a lot of hats. However, not all hats you're not supposed to wear all the hats. You got to designate and give those jobs to people who know what they're doing, and you cannot helicopter manage. Once you give that to someone, once you give that job to someone, let them do their job. So that's when hiring someone that you trust comes. It's very important to do that.
And it's a small community around here too, so you know who the people are that you can trust too. It's a lot of word of mouth that's around here, and it's a lot of word of mouth if you're not good either, and people know who those people are. The word producer is a tricky thing to say because there's so many freaking kinds of producers. You have a creative producer who's in charge of making sure the creativity of what you're trying to put together comes to life, and they work directly with the director and the production designer and all those people. That's your creative producer. You have your executive producer who's coming in trying to find the money for your production. You have the other producer that's on set daily working with your production supervisor, your production coordinator. So there's many different types of producers out there. Like the ones I was just telling you too, that we have a writer producer, we have a director producer type person who mainly she wrote the production. She wants to make sure that her vision is coming to life, but she's also out there in the trenches. We meet every single week on Zoom talking about, okay, this is where we're at this week. This is where we're at with this part of the production. We've got a new location that's coming up. This is what we're going to do. And that producer is in charge of that. So there's like so many different kinds. And I feel like with the production side of things, your producer works in they need to know what every single department does, because you are the one signing off on all of that. So if someone in costumes needs to go and purchase certain things, you've got all and like you were saying, you have to have all your paperwork in a row. That's where I come in as a producer, because I am paperwork. Everybody needs to know who does what and know ahead of time so there's no fighting. When you do indie productions, or especially low-budget indie productions, there can be a lot of infighting because you're like, oh, wait a minute, you told me you were going to do this. Well, that's why you have a deal memo that you pull down. As the producer, you're like, nope, I told you this is what you're going to get for this, and this is what your responsibilities are. It saves a lot of headache for that.
I'm going to ask a few more questions, and about 10-15 minutes beforehand, we'll open it up for questions. So how do you see the future of producing evolving in the next few years, or what patterns have you seen years ago versus now, and any predictions you might have?
Don't do that. You do that one first.
Okay, so what do I see now versus yesteryear?
Either yesteryear or what do you see, and or what do you see in the future?
Okay, well, what I see now is that producer has so many different titles. You know, so many different responsibilities, rather. And a producer also has multiple, talents that they're able to get done. Yesteryear, a producer from what I saw, this is just in my experience from seeing that, a producer was, they were more just getting the content, and that's what they did. And so the actors, the director, you have a unit production manager, and they were the ones that did the majority, but the producer just pretty much got the material that you needed and got the other people to make sure that they handled it and made it to set. So that's from what I've seen.
Well, I'd like to speak on it in the terms of indie production in general, because indie work now is different from back in the day also. You're seeing a lot of changes going on in the industry right now. You're hearing a lot about what AI is doing in the industry, and there's several positions that are disappearing because this is happening. Or they're using it as a tool right now to be able to make life a little bit easier on the set. But there are different positions and different crew positions that you're seeing some of them being phased out, which is tough. That was what all of the union strikes were about that was happening. Right now, the industry is not back in full swing as we kind of were hoping it was going to be. It's starting to, a little bit at a time, but the situation has changed on how things are going. Things are streaming now, as opposed to the old model of getting your film out and doing theatrical distribution. So that is different. And so there are different positions that some are going away and some are consolidating. So the producer seems to be doing a lot more of those hats. And being able to do it with less money than they had before. So that's what I see the differences.
I'd love to follow up exactly what you just said. And now, what is the role for the producer in helping the film make money? The traditional path for indie film to make money, and that's changing. So what is the producer's role now? What are the new revenue streams for indie production? What is the producer's role in helping ensure that those dreams open?
I think we talked about fundraising.
We did.
Second, make it in Miami.
I think, Andrew, you should come up here and tell them. I think you should answer that question. It's a very good question. I think we're still trying to figure that out. I know with our particular one is we are trying to identify what the distribution platforms are at the very beginning of the process to be able to make our money back from that. As a producer, we're working with pre-sales people, and you have to vet those too. Because there are some pre-sales people out there that'll put in their little contracts where they want to take a big chunk. Out of that.
They want 70%, and you only get 30% of your project that you work very hard for, that you bust your hind tail for. Yeah.
We complain about giving up 30%.
Yeah.
We're getting 70%.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's no,
But,
it's perfect transition there. The whole pre-sales thing and trying to make sure that you can get your funding back is huge, and vetting those people, and then getting producers who have worked with different studios before. Like we have one lady, I'm really thankful I've met her because I'm learning from her. She knows how to attach a talent like an A-lister talent to your project that'll help you with your fundraising efforts. It's always like you heard the saying of the chicken and the egg. It's like, how do you get your projects funded without the talent there, and how do you get the talent unless you have your funding there? It's totally, that is completely true. And the only thing that I have seen that I am learning is you need to be able to find a good salesperson who can kind of find out what your film is going to net domestically as well as internationally. That can kind of give you an idea of how you're going to budget. And when you budget, you have to be able to budget to where you're going to be able to make your money back. Because, for example, your Marvels out there, they have a certain budget. And if you're like, oh my God, they made, 30 million, 100 million, whatever it was, I don't know what they make. They have to make a certain threshold in order just to even break even. And when you're doing your budgeting as a producer, you have to keep that in mind. It's like, okay, who is my audience? How can this sell to start with? And you need to budget that in, because if you put someone A-lister in there, and you may not be able to pay back your investors. And what we're seeing now is everything's going streaming mainly. The ones that are making theatrical releases, a lot of those are just breaking even if they do get a theatrical release. For our particular one, for Randy Mandy, we've partnered with Chris, and he's networked in with these art house theaters across the United States. So part of his EPing with us is to see if we can get a theatrical distribution in at least 20 cities around. Maybe we can, maybe we can't. But it's one of the things that we look at so that it will help us get for the funding for the rest of the film. Did I answer your question, Andrew?
Geographic, selling out geographic distribution, is that still a part of the equation? Is that something that producers get involved in?
Yes. That's the quick question.
So my very last question before we open it up to everybody else, what are, 'cause you mentioned, how people, want 70%. So what are some pitfalls you see that whether indie or people applying for major industry producer roles fall into, whether it be contracts, money making, or things you're like, okay, I wish, like most people I see, fall into this, and I wish they could avoid it somehow.
Okay, I'm going to answer this question. Okay. One of the major things that people fall prey to is not vetting the distribution companies and sending your film, which may be a certain genre, to that distribution company, but they don't necessarily, it doesn't fit their library of work. You know what I mean? And a lot of distributors will not take the film if it doesn't fit in their library of work. So that's why you have to make sure that you do your diligence and do your homework and research about that distribution company. But I think that, sending it to the wrong distributor, that's one of the major pitfalls for your film. You have to know your audience. And that goes for not only distribution, but that goes for film festivals as well. Because there is pre-production and there's post-production. And so you're not finished paying for your film once it's finished filming. You got post-production. You have editing. You have submissions to not only the film festivals, but you have those submissions to the distributor. And so you've got to make sure it's best to make a list, or put it this way, look at those distribution companies, look at those film festivals, and look at the past events that they've done and see what types of films they have accepted and that they've screened. Because I promise you, if you don't do that, you are wasting your money. And some of these, now distributors don't charge. And if they do, run. Okay? You submit your film to them and they send it back. Hey, we love it. Hey, we don't. Now, I know we're not talking about film festivals, but it's still money. It's still budget. And exactly. And so with film festivals, they can run up to $100, $150 for submission fees. So you have to be very careful with who you. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, put that in your budgeting to start with. I think one of the things Bob had asked is talk about your process. I think from the very, very beginning, when you start your indie project, you need to make a checklist of everything that you need to do before you even start.
Yeah.
And marketing is another thing that you need to throw into your budget too, because if you don't market your film, you're not going to be able to sell it either.
And it's going to cost you money to market it as well.
It will. It'll cut. And if you want to go to such film festival, if that's the route you're going, instead of trying to sell it to streaming services or overseas, and you want to go the film festival direction, there are certain film festivals that you can get buyers at, but those are the big ones. Those are your Cannes film festivals, your Toronto, your Sundance. Yes, all of those film festivals and markets.
Yeah.
AFM, we're headed to AFM, I think next week. I think that's when it starts. And you set up meetings with people who can purchase your film that way. But if you're going to the film festival market, you have to have marketing materials too. You have to have your little, I don't know, your press kit, your little cards you want to hand out to different people. And if you also need to market your film too, like out in the theaters.
We actually had that question in YouTube. What is the value of film festivals for an indie production? So you already mentioned Cannes and Sundance. What's the value of the smaller ones? Why would you go that route?
For networking opportunities and meeting other people, because you never know who you're going to meet at one of these film festivals. I met you, I think, at one of the film festivals. And you never know who's going to be up and coming at one of these film festivals. Your PA that you're working with on this particular production could be your next, producer or your camera operator or whoever. You just never know, because this is the starting point. And going to different film festivals is a great way to look at other films and see how your genre fits in. And that's another thing. You were talking about picking the right genre. Yeah. When you're picking film festivals to submit to, you need to make sure, like, if your film fits a horror film festival, or if it fits whatever.
You wouldn't send your Twinkle Bell movie to a horror film festival. That's just common sense right there. So.
Right. Your family film goes to the family film festivals. The Atlanta Film Festival here is a wonderful film festival to submit to. A lot of indie filmmakers submit. They have thousands from all over the world there, and the short division for Atlanta Film Society and Atlanta Film Festival is Oscar qualifying. Too. It's one of those. That's the other thing too. You can consider when you go to these film festivals to see if they're Oscar qualifying for your short or your feature, because that would be something cool to get a laurel for that. And getting laurels is great, because then you can put that up there and go into a film festival. If you have a short, you can use that as a proof of concept. And so you get the right eyeballs on that. They'll be like, hey, maybe we can do something here, and we can collaborate, and we can make a full feature out of your short. So those are beneficial. I highly recommend going to film festivals especially when you're first starting out in this industry, just to see how it works. See how the people do it. See what kind of movies are out there and what's hitting with audiences. That's another thing. You can see how your movie is being reacted to.
Whether big or small. Some festivals are huge, some are small, some are in between. Whatever the size, if they're legit, because some of them are, some of them are not so much. And
Film Highway, I believe.
Film Freeway. Yeah. So.
Okay, Film Freeway. Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to open up some questions. Anyone have any? And I'll just repeat the question back, because I think it might not be very audible in the thing. Okay, go ahead. Okay, so best suggestion for high school students and graduates, and how to get their foot in the door in the film industry.
Well, if they are in an arts magnet school, that's one of the biggest things right there. Make sure that they're honing in on their craft, and make sure they're studying. Also, there are, we said we don't work for free or hire people for free, but there are plenty of, independent films where they are pro bono. And these are people who are just starting out. So do those projects. You know, you're in high school. Your parents are still taking care of you. You know what I mean? Yeah. Say it again. Yeah, they've got a roof over their head, and they don't have to pay rent and mortgage and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, do the free stuff. Get on Actors Access. Get on these acting websites and find the work, because Actors Access, there's Backstage as well. There's Backstage. There are a plethora of Stage 32. Yeah, and then there are many sites where they have listings of they have cast list, and they can go on that and see and submit, you know, themselves. You upload your headshot and put your resume on there. Actors Access it's one of my I like Actors Access. And so go on there, and they have all the audition listings, and you know, you can do that.
The other thing I'd suggest is, I don't know where your school is, if it's located close to Atlanta or not. Join some of these different organizations. They have student memberships. I know for Georgia Production Partnership, there's a student membership. I believe WIFTA also has a student membership, and it's a way to network. And they also have, through the Atlanta Film Society, is a really good organization in town that helps students. Also, they have year-round programming that you can participate. The other thing is I don't know if Georgia Film Academy is located near you, but that is a wonderful organization that also does high school as well as college students. And they are a wonderful organization that you can check into, and they do the below-the-line crew members. So they teach you, like, grip, lighting, that kind of thing. And from what I understand, don't quote me, I believe they have started high school divisions throughout the state of Georgia. But I would check into them. There's their website there. It would have that information. It's all about networking. And get these students to start ahead of time to meet people like us, the producers, and talk to us. We're open to talking with students. I love next generation people and trying to get people who are interested in the film. And that's the first question people ask: how do I get started? And how you get started is meeting people. So.
Thanks for looking out for the chickadees. And back there at the blue hat.
Excellent question. So to answer your first question, where can you find talent plus production plus everything else filmmaking? It's called Production Hub. And HUB, yes, productionhub.com. And there's a wealth of information and people on there. They have all of their credentials and everything on that site. And it's a matter of you contacting them. Let them know what your budget is, or they'll let you know what their budget is, and you guys have a meeting of the minds and go from there. Actors Access also has a crew page where you can go and see what their crew is, and I keep looking at you for Backstage. Backstage, check them out as well. I'm not as familiar with Backstage, and then there's casting networks. So there's a ton of them. Casting networks, and what you want to do, and then IMDb is also very good about that. So you want to create a account with all of these sites, and you will definitely find what you need with that. And then, of course, what we keep saying, networking, going to these events like this one, like, you know, conventions or festivals. Now, grant, I have never been successful with. I have yet to find grant writers or grant writing myself that is successful. So I'm going to pass the mic to Trish.
Ditto. I do know, I had mentioned the Film Society before. I do know that they have had a breakout session once about grants and grant writing a few years back. It's worth a chance just to call them and ask if they have a connection for that, because I believe that you should hire a grant writer because that's hard. to do, and it all depends on the genre of your film. Whatever that genre is that you're going after. Yeah, it's huge here in horror. So I would contact them to find out if they know who you could talk to for the grant area. I too have not had much success, but we're still plugging at it. I agree with her on those sites that she just mentioned. Also, I would like to mention cruise control. If you ever want to, I believe they're in the United States too, but I had a project where I had to cast outside the United States, and another producer gave me cruise control. And what they are is an organization where crews can sign up, and they vet them ahead of time, so that if you have never worked with this crew person before, they have already been pre-vetted. And like I had to cast in Australia, England, and South America. I had no idea if those crews were going to show up at my site at those dates and times that I needed them to be in. I called this cruise control group. They handheld me through the whole process, and they showed up on time, and they were very professional. So I agree with my contact.
Cruise is spelled
Like cruise, like a crew, CREW, cruise control. And if you get with me afterwards, I can try and get you that contact information. It's been a while since I've worked with them, but I do know that they have a representation that comes to Trilla Studios during that, what is the big event? Andrew, you might know. Not the State of the Industry, the equipment one. I'm Cinegear. Okay. It was like, whew, whatever. You have one
Yeah,
of
we just went to that.
those sometimers moments, you know.
Yeah, we just did that. Trish always goes to that as well. But we didn't see you there.
That's because I was in Egypt. I was in Egypt. But yeah, that one I highly recommend. And also, you can go through talent agents here locally. There's a listing on the web of all the local talent agents. And I can tell you some of the top ones too. So if you're looking for a particular type or whatever, you can call them directly, and you can cast directly through talent agents too. I shouldn't, because then I would show favorites.
Oh, never mind. Next.
I can tell you mine.
Okay. That works. All right. Do you have anyone else in the? All right, Mr. Andrew.
Last question, we probably have to wrap up with plugging the product. As a producer of an indie film, what's the value for you in licensing an IP to turn into a film?
Value and licensing.
Is there value in finding IP to license?
Is there value in finding IP and licensing?
You have to give me the tough questions, Andrew. Yeah, you need to answer your own question.
Yeah, license the game right now.
There might be. There might be. It depends on how much experience you have, too. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm new to the feature side. I've done several shorts, and I've worked on the corporate side. On the feature side, I've come in at production and pre-production. So you're talking about the discovery side and the licensing of that. I think the short answer is maybe, depending on what your experience level is as a producer. I would work with another producer who has done that before and guide me through that process to see if that was worth that or not.
Let me rephrase it. What would an IP have to provide you to be a value to you as a
An IP. Like your. Oh, you know what? That's not my gift. That's not my lane, because I don't do anybody else's work. I always do original, or if I'm cast in someone else's work, I am cast as an actor, and that's what I do. I don't do any kind of behind the scene. I can tell you this, and this may be a little offbeat, but we were talking about production and people with producers credits. A lot of the A-list actors who love your film so much, who love your script so much, but you can't necessarily, let's say, for instance, they work for $1,200 a day, and you want them so bad, and you can only afford $800 a day. Well, they might go ahead and agree to work for that $800 a day plus producer's credits. So,
Yeah, it's the back end.
yeah. Yeah. So, that's the answer I have.
For the IP you were talking about, my husband does some screenwriting, and he's optioned a book that he has written the screenplay for. He loves the book. He thinks it's going to be an amazing film. So he thinks it's worth it to be able to do that. I personally, I wouldn't want someone to come to me and pitch me something like that unless they are willing to help with the financial side of it. But it's not out of the question. It depends on who's pitching it, what the project is, and if I can't do it, I'm going to find somebody who I know that has the experience level to be able to take it on. Like, I know a lot of producers here in town, from the ones that produce the multi-million ones to the ones that produce the five-figure ones, and everything in between. It depends on what the project is. If it's killer, let's talk, Andrew. I think it would be good. All right.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for your insightful answers. I hope it was helpful for everyone, including online. And can we do a quick plug with? Yes, awesome. So where can we find you? Your newest project that you're looking forward to? I know you talked about a few things already, but
You can find me on Facebook, Tammy Thomas. Just look up Tammy Thomas. I'm not real good with social media. And then my Instagram account is Tammy Thomas 5833. The latest film I did is a feature called The Rings That Bind Us. It's another period piece set in the 70s. So, yes, the Hulu. Trish saw it. She's a big supporter of ours. But it's called The Rings That Bind Us, set in 1978. And it is about a group of ladies who decide to join a hula or do a hula hoop contest for the talent show. So, yeah, that's where you can find me, on Amazon or Tubi.
You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And on Facebook, I go by Patricia Hammett Taylor. Trisha's my nickname, but all my friends call me Trish. On Instagram, I am Trish Taylor _1. And LinkedIn, just put Patricia Taylor in there. I'm not sure what the code is. I have, as I mentioned before, I have 2 features that we're currently in discovery for. Hopefully one is going to get greenlit here soon. Cross your fingers. The one is a vampire comedy, Randy Mandy and the Curse of the Plaza Theater. And I think it's going to be hilarious. And it's we've got a lot of local talent attached to this project, a lot of names that people know. And I think it's going to be a cult classic when it's done. So, yay, I'm excited about that. And we're hoping to start shooting either February or March timeframe, depending on if we get funding in place. The second project that I'm working on is a full feature called A Taste of Freedom. It's a period piece. It's set in the 1960s during the civil rights movement. It's a coming-of-age movie of a young 17-year-old girl who runs away from an abusive family and starts working with the Vista Volunteers, and she thinks she's going to save the world and help this underprivileged community, build this community theater, and what ends up happening is she gets saved and learns how to find love and relationships. It's also period, so cross your fingers for that. We're trying to get this executive producer attached now, so that hopefully will be shot sometime in fall of 2025.
all right. Well, thank you guys for coming, and happy ShaoCon. See you later.